you're putting all your control of and your fee structures within FBA. And that's where going through the exercise of doing a cost analysis helps you understand, is FBA going to be the best solution? And for a lot of brands, it will be. But for some brands, it won't.
Welcome to the Ecomm Breakthrough Podcast. Are you ready to unlock the full potential and growth in your business? You've already crossed 7 figures in sales, but the challenge is knowing how to take your business to the next level. Join Josh Hadley, an 8-figure Ecomm business owner and investor, as he interviews highly successful business owners. Get ready, because you're going to learn specific actions you can take today to help your business reach its full potential and leave a lasting impact on the world.
Welcome to the Ecomm Breakthrough Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hadley, where I interview the top business leaders in e-commerce. Past guests include Kevin King, Michael E. Gerber, author of The E-Myth, and Matt Clark from ASM. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Matt Snyder. He is the founder of Brands Excel. Today, we are going to be talking about a secret or not so secret strategy of how you can avoid the new inventory placement fees, the low inventory fees. There's a magic bullet that can resolve that solution, and we're going to save that for the podcast episode. So stay tuned and learn more about that. This episode is brought to you by Ecomm Breakthrough Consulting, where I help 7-figure companies grow to 8 figures and beyond. Listen, Matt, I started my business back in 2015, and I grew it to an 8-figure brand in 7 years. But I made a lot of mistakes along the way that made the path of getting to 8 figures take a lot longer than it needed to. There were times that I made bad hiring decisions. I had to take money from my own personal checking account to be able to fund payroll because of cash flow constraints. COVID happened and we watched our business drop by 90% overnight. I remember wishing for a mentor who could have guided me along the way of scaling up, someone who had been there, done that, and that could share all the secrets of helping me overcome all of those challenges and obstacles. And that's why I've decided to offer one-on-one coaching and consulting, where I share the nitty-gritty cash flow frameworks, the sales strategies, and the operating systems that I have used in order to scale my own brand. And because I believe in giving each entrepreneur my undivided attention, I only work with 3 clients at a time. But first, I want to make sure we're a perfect match. So I'm offering a completely free, no strings attached business strategy audit valued at over $10,000. And I do that before we take the plunge. And this audit is my way of showing you just how committed I am to your success. So to our listeners, if this sounds like something that you're up for, drop me an email at josh@ecommbreakthrough.com. That's Ecomm with 2 M's. And then in your subject line, say, I want to pick your brain. And then let's chat about how we can take your brand to the next level. But today, I'm super excited to introduce y'all to Matt Snyder. Matt's career began in 2002, where he spent 6 years with the Dallas Mavericks. In 2008, he then shifted his focus to e-commerce by joining Woot.com to lead their third-party e-commerce efforts. Following Woot.com's acquisition by Amazon, the president of Woot and Matt launched Ecommodate in 2010 to support brands selling on daily deal websites. Later in 2017, he joined Veridesk to spearhead their Amazon Marketplace launch, offering Seller Fulfilled Prime services. And after 7 successful years there, he then recently has founded Brands Excel, an agency that's dedicated to helping brands launch and scale their businesses on Amazon. So with that introduction, welcome to the podcast, Matt.
Well, Josh, glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Excited to have this conversation with you here today.
Matt, super excited to have you on, because everybody's panicking about the new inventory placement fees, the low inventory fees. Basically, Amazon has said, you have to be perfect with your supply chain in your inventory, or else we're going to screw you over and we're going to make sure you pay for it. And so I think, what you'll be talking about today is going to be very timely. And again, I'm going to keep pushing this out further because we're going to dive deeper into it later in the podcast, because I think there's a lot of value that you're going to be able to share with kind of your expertise to a lot of our listeners. A lot of our listeners, 7-figure business owners, they've launched their own brands on Amazon. They've had success there, but Amazon's kind of like their meat and potatoes, right? That's everything to their business. You come from a very, very different perspective in the brands that you've worked with. where Amazon is not their first sales channel. It's not an Amazon first business. Instead, you're actually having to convince brands to say, like, getting on Amazon is worth the experiment for you all. It's worth it. It's not going to cannibalize your sales. You're missing out on revenue. And that's a very different conversation than, again, what many of us are used to. And so I think the unique perspective that you'll be able to bring to our listeners, I think, is going to be literally game changing, because you've seen what other brands are doing very successfully off of Amazon. So with that being said, Matt, that would be my first question to you is, you've worked with a lot of other brands that are not Amazon first. And so to our listeners that are primarily Amazon first, what are some of those strategies that you've seen working really well with those other brands that you've worked with?
Yeah, Josh, and I think you teed this up really well. And the point I'd just emphasize is, if we all kind of look at Andrew Jassy's letter this last week, there was a few things that stood out to me in particular, and I know a few other people picked up on this, but talking about reducing their costs, and specifically within the the logistics spaces. And I think the fees that we're seeing coming to sellers now, inbound placement fees and low inventory fees, these are directly correlated to Amazon's efforts internally to, one, accelerate the speed of delivery that they have to customers, but two, those are hard costs. Those costs have to come from somewhere. And while Amazon has, and since absorbed some of those costs for those last few years, they're now looking to push those on to us, the sellers. And so we have to get more creative in our approach of how do we better improve our strategies to reduce these costs. And I think it all comes down, as what we're talking about today, comes down to profitability. And I love, I know you've had a couple great hosts here in the past that have talked about profit first, and I'm a big believer in profit first myself as well too. So I think these strategies we're going to talk about today, bottom line, what we're trying to drive down to is how do we improve our bottom lines. You're right. So I grew, my career started on brand side with Veridesk, and when I joined them back in 2017, they had built this phenomenal product and launched as a D2C, and their whole mantra was just to go in and find areas where they could create crazed fans about the product. They knew that if they could get into an office space and get one person to put their converter on top of their desk, and then all of a sudden, like I am right now, like stand up at their desk, or else they look around the office, like, why is Matt standing up? And what does Matt have over there? That they'd come over, see the Veridesk, and then they'd walk down to HR and say, I need a Veridesk. Can you give me a Veridesk? Right? That's how the whole business was started, and grew this phenomenal brand and cult phase of growing Veridesk as a D2C brand with no Amazon even in the picture until several years later. One of the brands we work with today, very successful gaming company, they got their start by going into Reddit forums and interacting with the fans there, and understanding what the community desired, what was most important to them, and building the brand around those followers and those communities to get their buy-in and their trust. And then again, Amazon was secondary. And both these examples, what we've found is, as the brand develops outside, on the Amazon side, we're always getting, so focused on the direct competition and trying to outmaneuver them, whether that be through our image, hero images, SEO, advertising. It's easy sometimes to not have that direct connection with the customer. I understand what's the most important to them. I feel like that's a much easier or more native type of approach on the D2C side, where these brands really focus in on solving a specific pain point of the customer, but also becoming engaged with that community. So I think these are things that we as brands that are more native on Amazon can kind of pull from the D2C side. But oftentimes, as we talk to these D2C brands and talking through the opportunities that we have on Amazon, one of the advantages we have definitely found for them is that being built off of Amazon outside the dependency of FBA, they've built their own logistics systems using third-party logistics or their own warehouses. And so as they're coming into Amazon, one of the things we've been positioning them with is that, this new relaunch of Seller Fulfilled Prime is actually a good advantage for them, because they can leverage these existing resources and expenses that they've had to get them launched with Prime services on Amazon. And we'll get, in more of the details of those benefits, because it's more than just, having the Prime badge. There's other benefits to this program that sellers can think through. But again, going back to those brands who start on Amazon, FBA has been a phenomenal tool for all of us to be able to grow a brand, grow sales, get that Prime badge. And it's going to continue to be a critical piece for most brands. But with these fees coming into place, we know that there's going to be additional challenges down the road with FBA. So we have to always be thinking around what are the other strategies or solutions that we could be exploring to help offset some of those. So
yeah, I think that it's obviously very timely, but I'm also interested to hear more about like these other brands that are not primarily selling on Amazon. What else has led to their success? Do you see them being on multiple sales channels? They have more of an omni-channel presence, or with a lot of these brands that you've consulted for, are they like, oh, I'm really good at Facebook ads and that's how we've grown our business? Or, with Veridesk, I don't even know what their sales model is. I don't know if it was like just direct, like B2B strictly focused, or working with HR organizations and firms. I'm curious, like, tell me more about like how many different sales channels do these clients typically have, and where are they generating sales off of Amazon?
I'd say most generally start with with just their own D2C. So whether that be a Shopify storefront that they've popped up, they focus here because anytime you're that direct with the customer is where you're going to get the most feedback from the customer in terms of what's working, what's not working. Your ability to tie into that community, and that community then jumps into your social engagement. So whether that being through X, TikTok now, Instagram, Reddit's one is I think is often overlooked. Back in the day, again, going back to my early days at Woot.com, the whole success of Woot was built around a community. I mean, yes, we had great products and you always get a great deal on a product, but what really drove the engagement and the stickiness of Woot was, this funny story we'd write about the product, and then just the hundreds of thousands, literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who come each day to read that and then engage in this forum around that product. So I think what these brands have found is that when they off of Amazon can present their product and brand into a community, whether that be through social, again, Reddit, these different forums, they get that it's much easier, authentic conversation you can have with a customer versus it's much more difficult to have that on the Amazon side. And that's generally the fear we hear talking to owners of brands is their apprehension to Amazon. I mean, partially it's the cannibalization, but it's also this concern of we're going to lose that touch with the customer. We're going to lose that insight from them. The CEO, Jason McCann of Very, would tell you, like, early days when Veridesk was first getting started, there was a lot of different iterations of that product. Our hero product being the Pro Plus 36. There's multiple variations to get to that winning product. And we wouldn't have been able to do that at the speed or scale that the quality that we ultimately got to without that direct interaction from the customer initially to kind of tell us, we really like this, but if you could add this or make this adjustments, it'd make it so much better. And I think those are always the advantages that D2C brands have initially in their startup phases is the direct feedback on product development, but then also being able to get that authentic approval or acceptance from customers when in these kind of niche type of categories.
Yeah. No, I think it's very interesting to hear that, because it's a different level of how quick you can reach out to customers and how you can resolve customer issues before they even pop up, because they're going to be going directly to you. Whereas I would say 95% of the customer service inquiries, we never hear about our products. Yes, we still get customer service inquiries. I'd say 90% of them or 95 are just absorbed by Amazon, right? And the bot absorbs it. And again, even getting to Amazon's customer service bot is a game in and of itself in order to actually speak to somebody at the end of the day, right? And so there's a lot that just goes unheard of, right? And missed out. And so I like that perspective. Matt, I'm also interested to hear your perspective. And you worked on Woot, you saw that get acquired, you then pivoted to another kind of servicing other brands selling on daily deal sites. I'm interested to hear your strategy and perspective on that for our audience. Where do daily deal sites come into play? Do you like that strategy overall? Is it pretty cutthroat? Is that a completely different business model in and of itself? Maybe shed some light there as to how people can consider daily deal sites for their own strategies.
Yeah, great question. So obviously a lot of background history in this channel. And, when I left Woot and started the Ecommodate with Daryl Riddle, who's the president at the time, what we saw was this opportunity as Groupon, Living Social, Zulily, all these other deals were kind of popping up. The challenge brands had was that, as we're kind of present day, we're talking about omni-channel. Well, it was omni-channel back then was I had to go have a platform with Groupon, one for Living Social, one for Woot, and everybody wanted you to drop ship product. And so we saw this opportunity of, well, if we can create a centralized platform that will allow you to connect your brand to all these various different daily deal websites, that solves a pretty big pain point for brands. And we actually had great success with. And funny story, how I actually got connected with the team at Veritas was in 2016. Our company was part of the SNU Dallas top 100 fastest growing companies. We came in number 7, and the number 1 company that year was Veritas. And so that's how we met them. But at the time, I also saw the plateau or maybe the slowing down of the daily deal business as Amazon was just exploding, right? And so a lot of people, including myself, kind of put my focus directly into Amazon. Now, with that said, what's interesting is that if you were to go and take a look at the top 50 marketplace sellers on Amazon, you'd be surprised to find that Woot is on that list. So Woot today is a top marketplace seller. So in addition to just the daily deal business that they have on their own website, they actually source products and sell those just directly on the marketplace. One thing so here's a little hack or interesting tidbit for your listeners is that Woot actually has the opportunity, if you have aged inventory or excess inventory in FBA, you can actually work with the Woot team to go and sell that product through their promotions. They get access to different promotions and events, and they can actually transfer that ownership of inventory from your account into their seller account with the product never leaving FBA. So
that's amazing.
It's definitely an advantage that they have, and it's an advantage that we have helped some of our accounts or clients with in the past. Where again, if we get excess inventory, or in some cases, we know that they can get a better deal placement than what we can get as a brand, we'll run it through them and have their team post it and sell it for us. And again, it can just flip of a switch to go back from their seller account to ours. So again, still very active. I'd say the daily deal business has evolved quite a bit from the time I was in there, but they're still very active and some advantages that you can use when leveraging them.
Yeah. Is it so, Matt? Walk me through maybe some of the strategies that you consult on with your clients when they do come to you. What are some of the different levers you have them pull on Amazon that you could share with our audience?
Oftentimes, when we first engage with the brand, they're kind of fall in 2 different buckets. They're either a direct-to-consumer brand who has maybe attempted to try to sell on Amazon, and they realize quickly that this is far more complicated than what we kind of anticipated, or it's much different than our Shopify business. We thought we could just kind of take our learnings and plug it into here and make this work. Or oftentimes it may be more of the, they've been told over and over again that they need to be on Amazon, but they're hesitant. They're concerned about cannibalization of their sales on their D2C site, or the brand awareness. Again, going back to what we said earlier, they're so focused in on controlling and the experience that a customer has with their brand. To give that control over to Amazon can be a big hurdle to overcome. The other accounts that we've been talking with are vendors so they've been on Amazon for a long time, but they definitely see that there's challenges on the vendor side that, as much as we talk about getting squeezed on the 3P side, they're getting squeezed on the vendor side just as much, just in different ways. But they feel like there's opportunities for them to grow the business in a different way on the marketplace side. And so helping those brands think through that transition. And both kind of scenarios where we come into play is our background is working for brands across running media, merchandising, but more importantly is the business operations that goes on behind that. It's your inventory planning, it's your finance team, your technology and operations, all these other different departments that exist in brands that are traditionally built, through Shopify or enterprise level brands. So where we can come in with our experience and help them build out the right business operations for each different department so that these departments work holistically to then support Amazon. And then ultimately is then how can we help Amazon improve the engagement or brand awareness with those customers who prefer Amazon to, again, then build the awareness and support of their brand on their DTC efforts as well too.
Fascinating. How much do you see if somebody else already has an omni-channel approach? They've primarily been selling on Shopify. Like, how is it easier to launch on Amazon because they've already got brand recognition outside of Amazon? Or do you still see it just as challenging as somebody that's like, my brand's only on Amazon. This is the only thing. I just continue to launch product after product only on Amazon. Are there advantages of being omni-channel and pairing it with Amazon? And tell me what those might be.
Yeah, so great question, and a couple of different ways to answer that. So it's easier in the sense of they usually have good existing product that they've got some history in other channels to know like what's going to be their hero products, what's going to be the best drivers for them. Maybe they have some brand awareness already on Amazon. Customers are coming to Amazon looking for them, not finding them. Maybe they're buying another product or they're going back to the DTC page. So in those cases, like at least that you have some type of brand affinity or product history to build on, as well as you usually have a level of creatives and understanding of marketing that's going to at least lead into that early success. The other side of that, though, is where it's more problematic that we find is that when you take Amazon and the way that it operates specifically around FBA, and you throw that into an existing business model that has built around other third-party logistics, other type of business operations, it's highly disruptive. And that's where our team really specializes is being able to come in and help them kind of bridge the gap between, okay, here's how Amazon operates and here's what their requirements are for your inbound shipments, for your product listings, your variations and everything else. How do we help take your existing best practices for your Shopify business and model that out to then fit for Amazon? And the other way of, here's how Amazon's going to work. Let's help you build this into your system so it's not as disruptive as it was before. So a lot of the brands we've chatted with is they've attempted, they found out, blew up all kinds of systems internally, and they need help understanding, okay, if we're going to make this Amazon channel work, help us think through the operations of FBA and other services. And that's, again, going back to, we kind of started the conversation with on Seller Fulfilled Prime, has been a big benefit as the program's been reopened up and new sellers are now kind of jumping into it. As we're talking with these D2C brands, it's really reduced the friction point specifically around operations and logistics as they want to explore Amazon, because now they can kind of, again, leverage those existing strengths that they have on their direct-to-consumer shipping.
Yeah. Matt, I love that. So let's get into the meat and potatoes here, which is this, right? How do you avoid Amazon's newest inventory placement fees, Amazon's low inventory fees? And you're telling us, Matt, that the magic bullet here is Seller Fulfilled Prime. So to our listeners, why don't you walk through what is Seller Fulfilled Prime? How easy or hard is it to get? What are the requirements, the details? Obviously, you're an expert in this space, so walk us. I am new to this, Matt, so you're talking to I know very, very little about Seller Fulfilled Prime, so give me the basics.
Excellent. Well, happy to do so. So we all know that a customer's on Amazon, if you're Prime eligible, the likelihood of a customer seeing your product on the detail page or getting to your detail page is much greater than if it's a non-Prime product. So we can all agree that having Prime eligibility is one of the most critical things to success for sellers on Amazon. Going back to when SFP, so Seller Fulfilled Prime, often referred to as just as SFP. Amazon always has all these acronyms, right? So it originally started back in 2017. It was a beta program. Veritas was one of the few brands that kind of got into this initial phase. What Amazon quickly kind of closed it because what they were finding is that sellers were just having a hard time providing the same level of quality service that you would get out of using FBA. And knowing that Prime it's a brand for Amazon, right? So they want to ensure that when customers buy something that's Prime listed as Prime, that's going to be that 1 or 2 day delivery as customers have kind of come to accustomed to expect. And we know that during COVID, that all changed, right? I mean, all of a sudden Prime, even today, like Prime orders are going 2, 3, 4 days. One of the advantages we had during that time was we actually were able to maintain that same level of service during that period of time. So when customers are looking at a product and comparing, and they're looking at delivery times, if our time as an SFP seller, or actually was in some cases showing faster times than an FBA order, right? We actually saw improvements from our conversion and our sales through that period of time. So fast forward now, obviously today things are a bit more balanced around FBA and SFP. So with the program recently reopening, back in October, they reopened the program to new sellers, and they made some pretty big changes to this. And it's definitely is a signal to sellers that Amazon sees SFP as a long-term solution. But there's certainly certain products or categories where it favors those over others. And so we can kind of talk through some of the details. But in addition, as we kind of talked about earlier, is this connection with your customers. We talked about customer service a little bit. Those are other things that within the SFP program are other highlights I would call out. Is you get some customer information when we're shipping to them that helps us kind of internally see the gap of like, okay, is this customer also engaging with us on our D2C site? Right? What are the other touch points we have? We also get some levels of customer connection with them. So oftentimes the first contact comes to us as a brand, to where there was a slight crack on the corner of our desk. We can offer a 10% savings or something like that, and we can reverse that return that we would have gotten through traditional FBA. So those are a few just the early kind of wins that you can get as a brand. But the considerations here are what I advise brands first to think about is doing some cost analysis around the program to understand what works for you, because it is quite a bit to stand this up. Most brands who are native to Amazon have been built around FBA. And so they don't have, whereas you can go back to the DC, they built up their own 3PL program. They have their carrier relationships. They have the technology. These are all things that brands are going to have to work through in order to make SFP work. So in terms of, kind of early considerations, I usually kind of tell brands there's kind of 3 different categories that are kind of easy evaluations to see if it may be a fit for you. And that's if you're a high priced product. So anything over $100, generally, it would be something of consideration. If you're a large, bulky product, definitely consideration, which was why it was a great fit for Very for so many years. And the third would be like seasonal. Amazon has made some easier ways for this for some sellers, but you think about sellers where their 90% of their sales comes within a 3-month period, it's really hard to maintain the right inventory levels that you need in FBA to really maximize that. And so leveraging SFP during that period of time can be a way to ensure that you never go out of stock with your Prime eligibility products. So if you don't fit into those 3, not to say that that SFP can't be a solution for you, but those are generally kind of 3 easy indicators to think, okay, maybe we could be a fit. And in some cases, we actually see brands who look at this as it's a hybrid approach. We're not all FBA or all SFP, but within our product catalog, there's a mix of products that are going to work better for FBA and those that are going to work better for SFP. So all these, when we first kind of engage with brands who are interested in the program, is kind of sit them down, do a product analysis of what's going to kind of fit within those easy criteria points, and then kind of walking through the models of different considerations of 3PLs, technology, internal kind of teams and systems as well too.
Yeah.
So that's usually a good place to start.
Yeah, there's a lot, Matt, and you're definitely an expert. So you know your stuff with SFP, and I think to a lot of Amazon brands that are Amazon first, it's kind of like a world that they don't normally play in. But with the new inventory placement fees and the low inventory fees and everything, and FBA fees only continuing to go up, because Amazon is adamant that it's like, we're no longer funding stuff
Right.
for our partners, right? It's kind of like they now know that they they own e-commerce. And like, if you don't want to sell on our platform, that's all right. There's millions of others that will. So if you choose to leave, that's fine. So with that being said, this operational efficiency is getting extremely important. And then being able to understand that like you should be running your business profit first, then that's where this SFP needs to be like a consideration. And so Matt, I love this. Here are my questions for you. So let's assume you kind of have met those criteria. You have a large bulky item, it's above $100, but everything's an FBA right now. Who are the types that like, do I need to go build my own warehouse and then need to pay for overnight shipping with UPS, which could get really expensive? That's always at least been like the mental blocker in my mind, is like, how in the world can I compete with Amazon's extremely low shipping rates? That's the advantage. That's why FBA makes sense, because they have that leverage and really low shipping rates that honestly, for an everyday brand, you don't get those low rates. So dispel maybe some of those myths with me, Matt, and how that might work.
Absolutely, Josh. And I would say for most brands, especially if you're kind of more native to Amazon versus a D2C brand, you're not going to have a warehouse system. And we would not advise you go out and try to spin up a bunch of different warehouse locations and staffing and everything that would go with that. So we would say, sourcing the right 3PL partner is essential. And not all 3PL partners are going to be able to meet this level of performance. So in terms of just some high level metrics, Amazon breaks this down into kind of two different performance measurements that they have. One's your speed performance. So what this is based upon your shipping settings that you have. So just like if you're doing any type of merchant fulfillment, you have a shipping template that you create. And in this example, we would be telling Amazon all the various different locations that we are shipping from. So the Amazon's using that information to determine when a customer comes to our detail page, where do we have inventory at, what carriers are we offering, and what's the speed of those carrier services that we're offering. And that's what determines the speed, delivery speed that's displayed to a customer. And then Amazon has certain performance metrics that we have to meet based upon the product size: standard, oversized, and extra large. And so within each of those kind of tiers, we have a metric to hit of 1 day, 2 day, or greater than 2 day delivery services. From there, then we have to deliver on time at 93.5% for each week. And the other requirements that have kind of dropped off is there used to be buy shipping services. So essentially what this is you as a seller can still leverage Amazon's rates. It's not going to be the same as the FBA, but it's better than what you would get as an individual, and buy your carrier shipping solutions through them. You can also use buy shipping services, but bill it to your third party. And this is often what we do with our accounts, because at Very, we had a really good rates, because it wasn't just Amazon, it was our D2C, it was our corporate sales, B2B sales, everything else. We had really good rates. Some of the 3PLs we work with have really strong rates as well too, and we can leverage those rates and still use the buy shipping services through Amazon. And the benefit we always tell brands there is, just like if it's an FBA order where you get some protections in terms of the customer support, claims, you still get the same type of support from Amazon when you use the buy shipping services. But the key one really is that 93.5% on time, and it's less than a 0.5% cancellation rate. So, but the key is going to be that 93.5%. And so finding a 3PL and then ensuring that your carrier settings are going to allow for that type of service. We've got a handful of 3PLs that we have kind of vetted on our own to ensure that they can meet this level of delivery. And even within these 3PLs we work with, they're not the right fit for every brand. So really, it is going to each brand and their product mix and understanding what type of specialties that they're going to require, and then pairing them with the right 3PL partner. The other kind of piece that's not always looked about or thought about is the technology, right? Because of the speed of this, we got to get orders out of Amazon into your seller account and then out to your warehouse quickly. And so part of what we've often done work with teams is helping them think through what's the right technology or software systems that we need to automate all this so that we get orders quickly into the hands of our 3PL, and then the reverse of getting that information back from our 3PL into back to Amazon.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into this, Matt. Do you have a list, or maybe could you rattle off a list of those 3PLs that are kind of like Prime eligible or very familiar with the program that can meet the really high standards that Amazon has set out?
Yeah, there's two that in my mind kind of stand out right now within the space. The first being, Where to Go, which is a company, actually they're a subsidiary of UPS. So they were kind of built within the UPS ecosystem, and they were one of the first ones to kind of provide some SFP services. And some advantages there is you get some carrier support. It's owned by Amazon, or owned by UPC or UPS. I'm sorry. The second is, and one where we've done quite a bit of work and have really been impressed with their service, is the DaVinci Micro Fulfillment. And what's unique about them is they're since modeling the FBA approach, where they've got, I think, 8 locations now across the US. And what they're going to do is they're going to have smaller quantities around each of those locations. You can still leverage their tech stack in order to get your orders in and out of their systems from Amazon and yours. You can leverage their carrier solutions. And then thirdly, as we're talking about, again, trying to get ourselves off of so much dependency on Amazon, whether that be through FBA or sales, through omni-channels. So they can plug you into Walmart, Target, if you have direct retail sales as well too. But one of the other added benefits there is you're not just getting the support of Amazon, but as you're thinking more broadly of your omni-channel expansion, your D2C Shopify page, Walmart.com, Target.com, both of these 3PLs can help you support those channels as well too.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. And I'm glad you called out DaVinci Micro Fulfillment. We actually had Corey Aperion, the CEO of DaVinci Micro Fulfillment. So you could dive into that episode and learn more about how they have things set up. And that's great to know that they are very accommodating with the SFP requirements.
He's one of the smartest brains I've met in this space. And, it says a lot when they were one of the first 3PLs in this space to get approved by Amazon as an SFP provider. So I think this says quite a bit. And he's got some pretty good people behind him that have really helped the business accelerate to where they are today.
Yeah, awesome. Man, I'm out of curiosity, I'm interested. I recently purchased a couch of all things on Amazon. All right. So this came over as Prime. Okay. It showed up as Prime, but the delivery window was like 7 to 10 days, but it was still Prime, right? Which is like, what does Prime mean if it's 7 to 10 days? Like, that's standard normal e-commerce shipping times, in my opinion. So that would be my question back to you, is like, again, this is a huge, large, bulky item, right? It was delivered in a massive on pallets, right? It was delivered on pallets. And so that would be my question to you, is like, I would assume it's through SFP that they're getting this Prime badge, because it wasn't like Amazon Logistics that reached out. Like, they had a company that then scheduled the drop off and everything with me. So tell me more about how that would have worked.
Curious, in this case, when we made the purchase, was it sold by Amazon or was it sold by another third-party seller?
I'm going to have to go look it up. I think it was a third-party seller, though. Like, it was a third. Yes, I know it was a third-party seller, because I looked at their storefront and everything to see and where they were based out of. They were out of the US. So
Amazon has launched. So this is a great question. And we, during the time with Very, we actually had a period of time where we were offering LTL services. We actually paused it because the challenge we were running into was kind of the second piece you mentioned there, of the carrier being able to get the right information to then go to the customer and schedule a delivery time and ask the questions of where should we park and all those things you need before you show up. And it's always been one of the challenges with Amazon, right? Is getting the right customer information, phone number or email or something that we can communicate with the customer appropriately. And we'd always find challenges with getting the right information.
Well, because that brand, they had to reach out to me just through Amazon messages, right? And I was like, Good, great. I get so many Amazon messages. Half the time I'm just deleting them all the
They
time.
got lucky
right?
you even saw it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
Amazon has recently opened up a new program. It's a beta program specifically for LTL. And so we have not launched it yet with Very. It was one of the things we're still kind of exploring. But that's one of the solutions they're trying to solve here and related within the Prime service as well too. Again, with that, because it'd be considered the extra large, would not require 1 or 2 day services. So it's greater than 2 days. So it would fall outside of the traditional Prime delivery. I have not personally yet tested this one, but that's from what you've shared, that sounds like that's the program they're using. And so LTL adds a whole nother layer of complexity to this because of what we kind of discussed of the communication. But that through this beta program was what Amazon was focused on trying to correct, is the ability for us to communicate while still protecting the customer's data information to schedule those type of appointments.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So obviously, I think, Matt, what you're sharing makes a lot of sense for somebody else that already has a D2C presence. They've already established a lot of those 3PL relationships, and they could work this in. What about for Amazon first brands? Do you encourage them to consider SFP, and how should they weigh the pros and cons of taking everything out of Amazon and going somewhere else?
So for those brands who natively born on Amazon, they've been dependent on or used FBA 100% of the time. Generally speaking, these brands are also, bulk of their sales are always on Amazon. So is what I would encourage them to think about in thinking through SFP is kind of twofold. One is around the cost. So understanding that FBA is going to continue to have different fee structures or changes to it. There are certain things we've done with our brands that we work with around how do we just change packaging or make adjustments to accommodate for those fees. But sometimes you got to go beyond just making adjustments to your packaging or products based upon the evolution of FBA. And that's where I would recommend them to consider SFP. For one is the cost control. And as I stated, it's not going to necessarily be the right fit for every product. But happy to help a brand kind of walk through what would that exercise look like to evaluate the cost of a 3PL, the carrier expenses, offsetting that of what FBA is. And as we talk, then the second piece would be omni-channel. And one of the advantages we discovered through this going back to Very was it also reduces your overall inventory levels. So as you think about as a seller, you have to have available to sell product, your replenishment stock, and in between that, you have that delivery time from your warehouse or inbound to Amazon. You got that window where that inventory is unsellable. And so if you can, in theory, eliminate that inventory or that time period, because as soon as it hits your dock, it's sellable now. And I don't have to worry about maintaining a certain inventory level, low inventory fees, inbound placement fees, shipping to 8 different locations across the FBA warehouse or locations. Yes, you're replacing it with some other complexities within SFP, but then what you gain, in addition to maybe, even if your costs from FBA to SFP was flat or the same, the advantages you gain by reducing the overall inventory you have to carry, and then being able to reinvest these investment you have to now building out Walmart.com, Shopify DC page, right? Going more omni-channel. To me, those are really the value adds that you gain out of this program, in addition to just helping control the costs on FBA.
Yeah, I like that. I'm interested for you, maybe, Matt, to walk me through how you would strategize and develop a plan around a brand that is primarily Amazon first, but they want to grow on Walmart and Target. And the challenge is Walmart definitely does not want you sending any packages from MCF, and Target's the exact same way. So in order to do that, you do have to have it set up. You're either using Walmart's WFS program. Target Plus doesn't have theirs, at least as far as I know. So now I think the complexity is great. So now I have to divide up my inventory to Amazon and to Walmart. And it's one thing if you have, a handful of SKUs. If you have 1,400 SKUs like me, I'm not going to be inventory everywhere, because then I'm just going to have stale inventory sitting in all sorts of warehouses. So walk me through how we should consider, rolling it. Like, where do we place our inventory? Should we be all in on Amazon and try to use MCF as much as we can, as far as we can go, until we definitely need to pivot? Walk me through your thought process.
Great question. And also, I think Amazon's made attempts to help sellers solve this omni-channel problem or challenge that's out there. You think of, Buy with Prime. So Amazon's launched this program specifically for Shopify accounts you can put all your inventory into Amazon and then now ship that across your D2C page or Amazon. And it certainly, brands that have used this successfully and it's worked out great. But again, you're getting back to you're putting all your control of and your fee structures within FBA. And that's where going through the exercise of doing a cost analysis helps you understand, is FBA going to be the best solution? And for a lot of brands, it will be. But for some brands, it won't. And that's where, again, thinking through, we know the FBA fees, right? It's going through the cost analysis of having a few exploration calls with some 3PLs, understanding their pricing structure. Going back to Demystify, one of the things I love about them is they have a very unique pricing structure that I think can help oftentimes brands overcome that initial barrier. And they'll being able to leverage those carrier fees and technology. Those are usually the big costs up front for brands. So aligning with the best partner that can help you reduce those fees also helps you then be able to better cost analysis or build that model to understand truly what is the true cost comparison. So that's like the initial step. But then going the layer deeper than that would be, how would going into an SFP platform help me better reduce my costs, not just on Amazon, to get me into Walmart, or allow me to get my D2C page launched, and the savings I have over on those sides help even kind of offset my overall costs on the Amazon side. Again, going back to the profits, the more we expand, the more complexity we add, the harder it is to control those costs. So the more that we can centralize all of those into a single source of inventory and shipping, the easier it is to measure and make adjustments and improve those expenses versus trying to decentralize and have inventory in every single different channel that we're going into.
Yeah, I love that. Matt, this has been fantastic. Is there anything else that you haven't shared that you feel like our listeners need to know about SFP or their logistics strategies with the ever ongoing evolution of FBA fees that are only going to go upwards? They're never going to go downwards.
Well, I won't sugarcoat and say that SFP is a simple solution or a quick fix to everybody's FBA fee challenges, but I would encourage brands to consider it, work through the analysis, understanding what the value adds, pros and cons of both channels are. One of the things I've always loved about this community is that we're always willing to help other sellers. So I'm happy to work with brands if you just want to do an initial conversation of help me understand these challenges or these potential considerations we have. Happy to always help brands think through that. But what I'd leave you with is that, yes, it is a complex problem to work through, but so is Amazon FBA, and the complexities there just continue to increase. And so you as a seller have to make that decision at some point as where am I going to be able to gain the most control over my cost? And as I thinking about more broadly of where I want to sell my products across other platforms, what's going to help me best position, not just for Amazon, but also for these other retail channels that I want to push my products into.
Yeah. Well said, Matt. Definitely something for our listeners to consider. So with that being said, I have my 3 actionable takeaways for this episode. Action item number 1, my recommendation is that you need to be a profit-first company. So in e-commerce, margins are getting slimmer over and over again, right? The Amazon that we once knew in the 2018s, 2019s, that is gone. It's history. That was Amazon as a seller. That was your most profitable time that you could have been selling into, right? And now from here on out, it's going to get more challenging. Amazon's going to continue to pushing more costs on you. Now, here's the advantage of this, right? Because it's not all doom and gloom. The good news is the moat is getting bigger and bigger for somebody, a new brand, to just launch onto Amazon, right? I think those courses are going to be hard to find in the next 5 years of, hey, make a bunch of money on Amazon, sit back, kick back, and relax, because of the immense amount of operational complexity that will be required in order to begin those brands and to ship them in. Unless you just hit the nail right on the head, you're going to get your lunch eaten by Amazon, and Amazon's always going to come out as the winner, and only a very few select brands will. So with that being said, lean into the difficulty. Don't try to say like, oh man, this is too hard. How do I exit this business? Instead, say hard is good, because it's going to make my competitors, the weak ones, are going to fall away. And you either have the opportunity to be one of the weak ones and to say, this is too complex for me, I'm out. Or this is your time to double down and be like, okay, we got to get better operationally and operate with profit first in mind. And it's going to be tough for the next couple of years, but you know what? We will be a lot stronger and better for it at the end of the day. So that's action item number 1. Action item number 2 is doing a cost analysis with SFP, so Seller Fulfilled Prime. I think, Matt, you walked us through this, and this is not a easy button by any means, and you alluded to that. Your entire consulting practice is based upon the amount of complexity that has to go into this. But I think that this is an enlightening thing for people to look at, to say, do I have a big bulky product? Is it over $100? And if so, and especially if I'm selling in any other channels already, does it make more sense for me to maybe do SFP rather than doing FBA right now? So it's a cost analysis, and that would be my action item for that. And then my third and final action item would be this. If you're Amazon first only, again, I think that it's only going to get more challenging on Amazon, and the importance of scaling out your business on multiple brands or on multiple sales channels is going to become extremely important. Go back and hit the rewind button and listen to the first part about this episode, where Matt talked about all the other brands that are finding success off of Amazon that are e-commerce brands. You know, they're into the Reddit forums, and they have a raving fan base, or they have a really good D2B or a B2B side of their business, right? And so if you take pages out of their playbook, that can be ways to differentiate your business and allow you to compete in other ways that, honestly speaking, the overseas sellers can't and don't want to touch. They're only going to focus on Amazon. So those are my 3 action items. Matt, did I miss anything? Anything else you would add to those?
I think you did a great job summarizing that. And so, especially in that last piece, the advantage brands can take is Amazon's always going to be a phenomenal place for us to grow sales and build brands and products. But you're right. The moat we can get is building that brand even off of Amazon, where we're not going to have the same level as the Asia sellers that we battle against on the Amazon front. And candidly, more control over improving your profits.
Agreed. Love this, Matt. At the end of each episode, I love to ask each guest the following 3 questions. So here we go, Matt. What has been the most influential book that you've read, and why?
Well, you kind of tee me up and I almost feel like I'm cheating with this answer, but it truly is the most impactful for me. As I started my agency, my friend Robin Johnson referred me to Profit First and the team over there. I know you've had the Cindy or the team has been on your podcast as well, but for me, that book has been instrumental as I'm starting my business, thinking through just as an Amazon seller, but now also as a business owner, of how to think through Profit First and making sure we have the right principles in place to ensure that we actually are profitable. So that definitely is one. I would say the 1B on that one, which was my close second, was traction. Again, thinking through how do we build a strong business that has processes in place. And so using the EOS system has been instrumental for me as I'm on this journey of launching a business.
100%. Those are great book recommendations. All right. Question number 2. What is your favorite productivity tool or a new software tool that you've recently discovered that you think is a game changer?
So this is an Amazon tool that our team absolutely has been leveraging, and I'm excited for some new developments they have. But related to FBA, we talk about fees and everything that's going on, the changes, all the complexities of it. There's some great services out there that help you with your FBA reimbursements. But there's actually a tool that we've leveraged that even brands themselves can leverage called Sifted. They actually just are probably at the airing of this will have a different name. There's gone through some acquisitions. But what I love about the platform is it allows me as a brand to actually own and control my own reimbursements. So I can go and use the tool myself. I collect the full reimbursements of those FBA fees. But what's really unique about them is they actually have a tool that allows us to see the ship from point to the end point of our orders. So as we're talking about thinking about expanding to SFP or doing our own fulfillment logistics, the tool will tell me exactly where Amazon's shipping from to my customers. So I can kind of see those hot spots of Amazon's putting a lot of my product, or where are we shipping a lot of products to help us kind of answer some of those questions around the logistics and warehouse questions we would have.
I have not heard of this tool, and I'm looking at it right now, Matt. I'm interested. How else can somebody use this tool?
So I do have an offer link for this that will get you a free trial for a period of time. So I will share that with you, and we can put that in the show notes.
Okay. That's awesome. Love that. Thanks for being willing to share that. That's a great tool. All right. Third and final question. Who is somebody that you admire or respect the most in the e-commerce space that other people should be following, and why?
This is a tough one because there's so many. But I would say one of the areas that we have really been trying to lean in as an agency, helping brands who are investing a lot of money into Amazon media, as well as maybe investing a lot into social and other retail media, is helping them understand how this is all working together. And so Srinath Reddy with the team over at IntentWise, I feel like they've done just a phenomenal job of building out a platform along with AMC reporting, so Amazon Marketing Cloud, to really help brands for the first time be able to answer these big questions of how are my media dollars really working for me? What's incremental? What's getting wasted or burned? And how do we make those efficiencies? And so he is definitely one of the smartest people I've met in this space. If you're not following him, he puts out some great content on LinkedIn as well as some webinars. So definitely check out Srinath Reddy and the team over at IntentWise.
Love it. Sounds like we need to have him on the podcast, man.
You absolutely should. We can make that happen.
I love it. Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you for all the great information you shared today. If people want to reach out to you, they'll take you up on your free offer of helping them do that analysis. How can people find you?
So easily to find me on LinkedIn. If you search for, I know we can put my link here in the show notes, but there's look for Matt Snyder on LinkedIn. Easy to find me there. You can also go to our website, brandsxl.com, hit the contact information there, and get in connected with me. But my email is also matt@brandsxl.com, so feel free to reach out however you prefer.
Awesome. Matt is an SFP expert. So if you want to go through that analysis, I encourage you to reach out to him. So Matt, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you, Josh. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening. Visit ecommbreakthrough.com for more information. If you've enjoyed today's episode, the best way you can show your appreciation is by clicking the subscribe button and quickly leaving a review. See you again next time.